All right, so welcome back for another deep dive. You know the drill.
Yeah.
We take a first line from a novel and just really kind of break it down, see if it's truly hooked from the first line material.
Yeah.
And today we are looking at Chuck Palahniuk's Choke.
Okay.
And the line is, if you're going to read this, don't bother.
Oh, wow.
I mean, talk about a way to start a book, right?
Yeah. That's pretty bold, huh?
Yeah.
It's very Palahniuk, I think.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I guess the first thing that jumps out at me is just like this, like, defiance.
Yeah.
Right? Like, how dare you tell me not to read this? I'm going to read this.
Yeah, it's kind of like almost controlling, right? Like, don't read this. You know, like as a reader, you're already like, oh, yeah, well, I am going to read it now.
Yeah, now I have.
Yes, now I have to.
Out of spite.
But it's interesting because that idea of control really plays into the themes of Choke as a whole.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, the main character, Victor, he's all about manipulation. You know, he's trying to control people. He's trying to control situations. And in a way, he's even trying to control us as readers with that opening line.
Yeah, it's like he's already, like, in our heads messing with us.
Exactly.
Before we even really get into the story.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's funny because it also has this, like, I don't know if cynical is the right word, but like this very like...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think cynical is a good word for it. I mean, Palahniuk in general kind of has that cynical tone.
Yeah.
But that opening line really embodies it.
Yeah.
You know, it's like he's already anticipating that we're going to judge him and his story.
Yeah.
And he's just kind of like preemptively rejecting our judgment.
Like, whatever you think, I don't care.
Right.
Yeah. And it's interesting because, like I said, it kind of pushes you away as a reader, but it also makes you more curious.
Yeah.
Like, what is this story?
Like, why shouldn't we bother reading it?
Right. And it's so interesting because he's like breaking the fourth wall, right? Like, he's talking directly to us as readers. Yeah. He's acknowledging that we're here reading his book.
It's that metafiction thing.
Yeah.
You know, where the author kind of like winks at the audience.
Yeah. And is that always a good thing?
Well, I mean, sometimes it can feel a little gimmicky.
No, okay.
You know, like the author's trying too hard to be clever.
Right.
But I think in the case of Choke, it actually works really well.
How so?
Well, it goes back to that idea of control and performance.
Okay.
Victor, the main character, he's always putting on a show. You know, he's very aware of his audience.
Yeah.
And so that opening line where he's directly addressing the reader. Yeah. It kind of foreshadows that aspect of his personality.
So it's not just like a random stylistic choice.
Right.
It's actually like tied to the themes of the book.
Exactly.
And speaking of foreshadowing, Choke, as I'm sure many of our listeners know, is a pretty dark and messed up book.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, there's addiction, self-sabotage, all kinds of dysfunction. So do you think this opening line like sets the stage for that chaos?
I definitely do.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of hints at the darkness that's lurking beneath the surface.
Okay.
And it also kind of sets the tone for the whole novel.
Yeah.
Which is very much like a descent into this kind of like maelstrom of like messed up desires.
Yeah, I like that maelstrom of messed up desires. And, you know, our source material called this opening line Palahniuk's signature voice. Do you think that's accurate?
I mean, it's a bold statement, right?
Yeah.
But I do think there's some truth to it. I mean,
Yeah.
it definitely has that kind of like in-your-face quality that Palahniuk is known for. And it also has that dark humor, that kind of like underlying sense of vulnerability that I think is really characteristic of his writing.
Yeah, it's like he's trying to be tough, but you can also kind of see the cracks.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I think we've seen how this seemingly simple opening line can actually be pretty complex. Yeah. You know, it's got that defiance, it's got that cynicism, and breaks the fourth wall. And it kind of foreshadows the chaos that's to come. It's definitely attention-grabbing, maybe even a little disturbing, but it definitely makes you want to keep reading.
Yeah, it does.
So here's a question for you, dear listener. If you were writing Choke, what opening line would you choose to hook the reader? Let us know in the comments. And until next time, happy reading.